Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the HTBox AllReady community stand-up. We are just going over this project we are coding for the greater good, and AllReady is a project. It's an open source one that is built on ASP.NET Core. It's hosted in Azure, and it has been built 100% by volunteer contributors from around the world. We've got about 150 contributors who've made over 1,000 pull requests in the last 2 years to make this thing a reality. On the call today, we've got Steve Gordon, one of our core contributors. We've got Emily and Chris, who are also supporting the team in one way or another. Chris is new to the team doing some UX stuff, and Emily has been just an incredible asset in terms of helping to clarify and define features. And today we're going to come back and talk about UX in a couple of minutes, but we're actually going to talk about a couple of great development opportunities that are happening. The first up, yesterday, Steve and I had the opportunity to present to our fellow MVPs, and we had over 65 people join the call. We had 2 different calls, and so we had MVPs from around the world, literally I think every continent except for Antarctica. So it was really cool to see so many different faces and people from around the globe joining the call to learn more about this project. We are doing a big push between now and the MVP Summit, which has been announced for early March. And we have a goal of getting 125 pull requests between now and MVP Summit, 25 pull requests from every region. We've got some things that we want to focus on. We've got some things that are in the backlog, but we also have to make some shifts in the way that we approach usability on this thing. We're talking about things like internationalization and getting resources together so that we can distribute this application globally. We want to talk about lowering the barrier to entry so that smaller organizations can sign up, automatically deploy AllReady, and have it running in their community with very little friction. So we've got all of these goals that we are hoping to achieve, and we've got volunteers from around the world who are now signing up to take part in this. So it's super exciting. Now that's going to be taking place. We're going to be meeting every Tuesday going forward from now until MVP Summit. We're going to be updating with all the progress that we've got as we get the project together and get the issues sorted out. Today, though, just a couple of other announcements. Steve, if you want to talk about what's going on in your neck of the woods across the pond.
Yeah, sure. So we're quite excited to have Rich Campbell come down to join us in sunny Brighton in the UK just after NDC. So Rich is going to join me for the day, Saturday the 20th, and we're going to do a one-day codathon with some local developers, both at Magix, where we're going to be hosting the event, and some external people from the .NET Southeast user group as well. So we're very excited to get a number of people that have volunteered to contribute, spend their Saturday with us, eating pizza and hopefully submitting some pull requests. So that should be very good. I think we're actually now full, but there is a wait list on meetup.com, and I'm sure we can get the link tweeted out to people if they want to get onto that wait list.
Yeah, that sounds good. Steve, if you tweet that out, we will make sure that we get that all retweeted by all the appropriate social media accounts as well. And if you can send me the details in Slack, and I will also post it on the Facebook page, and hopefully we can engage some people via there too. I like that you mentioned the pizza thing. Rich Campbell always talks about how a lot of charities or rather a lot of businesses take money and they give it to developers and turn it into software. With AllReady, what we've been doing is feeding developers pizza and turning that into software. So we've got a little bit of a different approach, and it's not quite the compensation that most software developers are used to, but we try and make it work anyways. Okay.
It goes a long way.
Yeah, it sure does. It seems to have. It's got us this far. Emily, we've got you on the call as well. I know you're standing by. We will be, as any clarifications for usability and issues come up, I'm sure you're still willing to help us out with getting all those clarifications into GitHub.
Yeah, definitely. I will be annoying as I can to make sure that they're as clear as possible.
Perfect. Love it. Awesome. Okay. We have had a few pull requests that are kind of interesting come up in the last couple of weeks. We did receive back before the new year a pull request that moved the rest of our code from the web jobs into Azure Functions. So we've got a branch for that, and we had a couple of hiccups in Azure, but I think that is past us now. So I'm going to get back on trying to get our move away from web jobs and over to Azure Functions. So we've also, I think somebody from the Azure Functions team actually even reached out to us on Twitter and said, hey, if you need help, we can help with that as well. So we've got support from internal assets at Microsoft to give us a hand with that as well. We also have a, did you want to talk about the update to the integration test, Steve, really quickly?
Yeah, I'll do it briefly, and we can maybe dig into it again next time around. But so I've added a PL that starts to add C#-based integration testing into the project. We have got an existing scenario test project, which is written in F#. I've personally not touched it. Don't really know if it works and how brittle it is, but looking through the kind of options, the test server and C# code seems to be a nice way to go, just to test hitting actions sort of end to end, so we can see that the whole flow within the application is working as expected. It may add some more maintenance costs, but it may give us sort of that reassurance as new people are coming onto the project that it's working end to end. So I think maybe we just need to weigh up the kind of maintenance versus burden scenario there.
Yeah, I think we're going to be talking about that in greater detail next week on our call. So that'll be the topic for conversation next Tuesday, if anybody's interested and would like to join. We do have the chat available. We've got some viewers online. So if you have any questions for us about the project, then please go ahead. We're going to start talking about user experience. I'm just going to share my screen here really quickly. Magic green button. There we go. And I am, oh, there we are, into the world of the cool 80s special effects stuff. Okay, so basically we have this simple view when we log into AllReady that displays the active upcoming events. But as a volunteer right now, you know, I actually don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know. I don't know what requires help. I don't know what things are most needed. I don't know if any of these upcoming events require volunteers that have the skills that I possess. So there's a number of things there that we need to talk about. As far as some of the flow goes and everything, I'm just going to sign in here. When I sign in as an administrator, I see a list of users. I don't know if this is the most appropriate view. There's a dashboard hub I can go to, and it kind of takes me to a couple of different dashboards, event dashboard and volunteer dashboard. These don't really have anything, you know, I'll go back to the other event dashboard. There's no particular call to action here for me to do something. So if I'm coming into this and I'm looking at this, it just says event dashboard. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. When I go to the volunteer dashboard, I see a couple of I see a list. I see a calendar type view. Again, as an administrator, I'm not sure at first glance what I should be doing with it, and there's no flow that kind of leads me towards getting some help. Further, if I kind of drill through things, if I'm looking at one of these campaigns and I drill into it, I'm still, while I'm following along, you know, I'll go back to the homepage. I see the upcoming events. I can click on view, but view isn't really a call to action. I start to see some calls to action here. I see, you know, these volunteer things. I see that there's a skills match for this. I like this because it's got the, you know, the help right into it when I hover over it. There's a couple of other things as part of the campaign. It gives me a link to the organizer, those kinds of things. But again, you know, I'm getting into this page. I don't know that I feel like I know how I got here. I don't know what things I've right now. There's no assigned tasks, so you know I can actually volunteer for something, and I'll just volunteer. So this one's actually assigned to me right now. So I see that, but it kind of gets lost because it's kind of, you know, in this mix of tasks and my assigned tasks. I don't know really what I'm responsible for. I don't know how to go and see all of the things, you know, like when I first sign in to this page, you know, I come to this entry point and I don't really understand what work I'm supposed to be doing or what I'm qualified to do. So those are kind of some of the challenges that I've kind of noticed. Steve, I'm not sure if anything comes to mind on your end, but would you mind maybe talking through any of the general concepts that you've got from a usability perspective?
Yeah, I think it may be good to hand over to Chris actually, but I mean, generally, I think we're seeing that we've got the functionality in the app, but it's not clear to people what the expected flows are, and we're not really guiding non-technical people through the site. I was demoing this to Chris a weekend or so ago, and even I was having 2 years developing on the app, couldn't remember some of the flows or why we had them. So I think that's a sort of sign of bad UX if I can't remember that, and I probably built some of it. So yeah, I think it's really just figuring out, I think for us, what are the key user journeys that we really want to take people through? What are our key users? Is it more about getting volunteers registered and assigned, or is it more about the planning, and where do we want to focus that time first from a sort of perspective of the Red Cross use case?
Right, excellent. Okay, so let's maybe start talking about some of those journeys and some of those proposed flows that we've got. Now, Chris, understanding, of course, that you're still new to the mix here, but you had some initial thoughts and some ideas that I think just at first glance really started to add some value to what it would look like for folks if they were to sign in with a different experience. And again, I mean, thematically, it probably doesn't match the colors and everything, but just so that people understand, this is wireframe mock-up stuff. It's not our final design. It's just more to describe the journey and whatnot. But Steve, maybe I'll let you share, and we'll let Chris walk us through things.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, the design that I've done here isn't a visual design. It's purely to maybe get some ideas going about different ways of structuring the information without having done any kind of user testing or usability testing of the existing one or this wireframe. It's all completely, it's guesswork, basically. That's the kind of thing that would be really useful. And Steve and I have discussed as a possibility for the codathon on the Saturday coming up, to actually put something, either this wireframe or the existing in front of actual users, and get them to play around with it. From my point of view, when I was introduced to the project from Steve, and he walked me through it, the biggest takeaway that I had, there's obviously small issues such as form fields not being clear what they do and things like that. Those are kind of really easy to fix, but the bigger overall issue I had was the hierarchy of the pages and the hierarchy of the functionality, like events belonging to a campaign and things like that. That wasn't overly clear. Even sort of an hour or so into being shown, it really took that long until I clicked, oh, okay, events aren't their own thing. Events are something that are within campaigns. That kind of structural hierarchy wasn't obvious to me until quite some time. So this wireframe that Steve is showing now, maybe it's just one option without having done any testing or research, one option for how that hierarchy could become more clear, and also giving some things like this positive feedback to users. Like if you create a campaign at the moment, there isn't really any feedback. You click save or publish and nothing much happens. Obviously you can see the campaign, but they don't know if there's anything else to do. Whereas this, it's just an example of perhaps give some positive feedback. Great job, you've created your campaign. Here are some things you can do next. So we're walking them through a flow of things that they're likely to do. Then when they're creating an event, for example, which I'm given to understand is a very that somebody might want to do. This makes it clear that the event is part of the campaign. It's nested within a specific campaign. And this screen that Steve has just scrolled down to, this shows in the future when they've got several campaigns on the go, it's still quite easy to see the structure that events belong to specific campaigns, and you can hopefully jump between events, jump between campaigns without losing track of where you are in the overall scheme of functionality. And again, I'm very, very new to the project. This was a mock-up without having done anything more than a couple of hours of chat with Steve. So there may well be things that I've missed the mark on, or maybe not understood the user's needs as well as, it's possible to understand them. But that will come later. This is really kind of a jumping off point to see what people think and maybe put in front of some potential users, even if they're, wives and girlfriends or husbands and boyfriends and get some non-developer people to see if they understand this flow and if there's anything that we've gotten wrong, anything that can be improved to improve those that user journey.
That's excellent. I mean, even from my perspective, just having a first glance at this, I already, there's a better understanding. And one of the things that kind of comes out to me strongest is that I feel like there's almost two experiences that we need to design for. One is for the organization administrators, and one is for the volunteers who approach the site from the perspective of trying to help out with a cause. And I feel like we don't have a distinct enough separation, and that right now, Steve, like you talked about how coming back to the UI after a period of time, it's kind of hard to remember what we're supposed to do. And you're right, absolutely. That's a symptom of UX. That's probably not what it needs to be. For me, I think that it's also a sign that we are, let me just stop presenting here for you. For me, it's also a sign that, when I'm looking at some of those screens, that it's not clear when I'm logged in as an administrator that I'm looking at an administrator view. And so maybe a possibility is saying, switch back and forth between the volunteer view and the administrator view, so that we're not muddling those things together, and it's a little bit less confusing from an interface perspective. Those are some of the thoughts that I had. Emily, you've used the software a little bit. You've reported defects and things like that. Did you have any overarching concerns or any specific suggestions that could help us as we kind of start to guide this UX revamp?
Well, it's kind of been clear that we do need to make an adjustment, and I do agree with Chris. It was very much difficult to understand, campaigns and events, how it kind of works together. I do agree that trying to make it, and I did like the mock-up of having the different boxes and just having it a little bit clearer to be, for the user to be able to understand, have I signed up for something? What is actually this about? Where, okay, my skill sets are here, but is it actually, in the time frame, or, having it in a very clear overview, which I think hopefully the UX, the new UX will help. I'm more than happy to look through it and try and kind of work through if there are any, changes or any suggestions that I can make. But I really do like how clear the new mock-up is.
It's certainly nice and clean, and I think more apparent as to how things are laid out. And I think we're going to have to expect that there's going to be at least some ramp up. When you walk up to, even, like I brought my mom on Facebook. There's things you regret, but I brought my mom on Facebook, and the first time she sat there, and she kind of looked at it blank face, and she didn't know what she needed to do. But after a couple of weeks, a few small embarrassing posts, we were able to get through some of those hiccups, and she was able to figure things out. So I'm sure that we can, at least make this approachable. I think that's what we're missing right now, as an adjective, is that it's not very approachable. And so certainly to soften the blow of the initial impact would be wonderful. Okay, I think we've got we're at the 20-minute mark. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we'll probably stop the broadcast now. I do want to mention we had in both of the sessions we had a UX person step up. So in the morning session and the evening session yesterday, we had someone step forward and say, we'd like to help with this user experience. So what I think that we really need to do as a next step is to get Chris and these other two UX people together into a design session, and I will try and help facilitate that. So as long as everybody's willing to do that, then we can totally make that happen. And we can schedule that and maybe even make that happen in the next 10 days or so, hopefully in the next week, because we've got now an army of developers and software professionals from around the world who this project is now on their radar, and we'd really like to make sure that we keep this flow going. So thank you everyone for joining the call. We're going to stop the live broadcast. We're going to talk about a few things offline, and if anything comes up important, then we will make sure that we tweet it out, especially if there's going to be another meeting about UX and whatnot. But thank you for tuning in. Please help share the word. Follow us on Twitter. We're at Facebook, at HTBox. We're also on Facebook. We're at htbox.org on Facebook. So follow us on those accounts and help spread the word, retweet things out for us, and just kind of keep this momentum going. We've just really been excited over the last couple of weeks and what we're building towards here. We'll talk to you guys next week on the next community stand-up for AllReady by the Humanitarian Toolbox. Cheers.
Bye.